Yeah, do you think you wanted to get better?
Yeah. Bless her.
That's the deal. We got her out of treating like that.
Yeah, that's what you want to say.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our writing clinic with myself, Christine. And last week we touched on pre-writing. We went into what is pre-writing and we looked at why pre-writing is important. Okay, so this week we're going to look at the actual tools that we can use in pre-writing. And I'm going to walk you through how to do this online. Okay, so if you are somebody who likes to store all of your notes online and like to use your laptop when you're studying, then this is definitely for you. And if you're saying, oh, Christine, I like to use physical materials such as paper, my notebook, don't worry, we will have another session on how to use resources that are physical. Okay, so if you haven't watched last week's session, please go over to our YouTube channel, have a look at the pre-writing techniques that we looked at. You don't need it for this session, but it is good to get some background on why we pre-write. Okay, so let's get in today's session. So we're going to do a quick recap on why we pre-write, and today's technique that we are going to be using in our pre-writing sessions are the WH questions. Okay, we will extract information from our WH questions and have a look at how to do that exactly. Okay, so why do we pre-write? Now, if you remember from last week's session, it's a whole lot of reasons. It gets us going. It's also a very low stressful activity because you're simply writing, you haven't started your assignment. And why I like it is because it helps to formulate ideas. Okay, so it helps me to get all the ideas I have associated with the topic, write them all down, and decipher what's going to be used. And also, it reduces anxiety and stress because if you go straight into writing your essay, you may run out of steam halfway through. You haven't thought about how you're going to start it, how you are ending it, and you are a bit stressed about the whole process. And pre-writing takes the stress away because it allows you to see an overview of what your writing will look like eventually. Okay, so WH questions. What are they? So they're basically questions that we ask ourselves that help us to answer our assignment brief, our topics. They just let us formulate questions to generate questions that we can use to answer. Okay, so we're going to be focusing on creating WH questions and using them online. And today's online tool that we're going to be using is the Word document. Okay, so it's something you definitely have, it's something you've used, it's something you may be familiar with, but if you are not familiar with it, I will teach you how to go through, how to open up Word, what exactly you need when creating your WH questions. Okay, and why I do like online tools is that you can save them. If you lose your notebook, all the information is gone. However, with using an online tool, saving it lets you access it later. You can amend as necessary, and it's a good practice for you to get into, especially if it's foundation year. Tabulate all your notes online. Okay. For me personally, I used to write in my notebooks. I was a very big fan of that. However, I've now started making sure all of my notes, even before I start writing, are saved online just because I've lost a notebook with all of my information. So I don't want anyone to suffer the same fate as me. Okay. But if you are still a fan of writing in your notebook, I definitely recommend taking pictures of it and scanning it online so you have a resource saved online and both in a physical copy. All right, so let's get into that. So what I'm going to need you to do is we are going to find the Word doc on your laptop, PC, tablet, okay? This is your icon. It's the Word icon. You can type it into your search bar. You can have a look at your MS Office, or Word should show up somewhere, okay? So have a good rifle around for it and find Word. Now, once you have located Word, I want you to choose a new blank document, okay? So it's going to say new and it's going to say blank document, and you need to double click on that, and that's what will take you to this page. Okay, so if you don't see this page, that means you haven't clicked on a blank document. Now, there may be other templates that you can use, but I do strongly suggest starting with a new blank document. Okay, so Word, double click on Word, will open up to a whole page then, and please choose new blank document. And this is the screen that you should be looking at. Okay, if you are still having problems accessing Word, I would suggest watching a quick YouTube video just to make sure you're following all the correct steps. Okay, so if you're not yet at that part, feel free to pause this, watch the video, come back and restart the video once you're at this step. Okay, so you'll see there's lots of bits and bobs going around here. Just gonna magnify this. You'll see file, home, insert, draw, design, all of it there. You won't have this at the bottom of your screen because that's on mine, but it will definitely take you to your Word document. Okay, so remember, we are going to be asking a lot of questions. Okay, so if you're going to ask questions, we want to collect data or collect data and put them together. And the best way we can go about this in a most systematic and easy way will be to use the table. Now, if you haven't used the table before, you're going to mosey down to the top, or mosey up to the top. Okay, so remember your screen looks like this. It is the top area here, right at the top. So you would have no name at the bottom. At the top, you'll see autosave, and just below autosave will you see these functions. And it starts with file, home, and insert. Now you want to double click on insert. Okay, so double click on insert and it's going to take you down to table. So this will show up. You can see table is highlighted here. So double click on table and that's going to create a table for you. Now you got your table open and you got these squares. It's got pictures, shapes, icons. Don't pay attention to that. We only need to focus on the table. Okay, now you see it says insert table, draw table, Excel spreadsheet, quick tables. Now you can draw your own table if you want. You can also press insert. However, I'm going to choose insert table, where I'm going to hover my mouse and I'm going to select my table. So how many squares I need. Now these are your columns going from up to down. Those are your columns, and your rows are going from left to right or right to left, either way you look at them. Okay, so you can choose as many rows as you'd like and as many columns as you'd like, but I would like to label each column with a WH question. Okay, so I'm going to choose 5. Now I'm going to show you how to do that when I stop toggling between my screen. But this is our end result that we are going to be looking for. Okay, but I'm going to show you how to do this now. So ideally you want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. If you want to add some more, that's purely up to you. Okay, but I would suggest 5 or 6 if you're going to add in a how question. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go all the way to words. Okay, so here we go. There's file, home, insert, and you see on your right, it's table. Okay, so double clicking on, or one click on table, and it says insert table. Like I said, you can choose your own if you want. It's just an extra step. However, quick, short, easy method, move your mouse over the squares. Okay, and as you can see, it's creating a table for us. So that has 3 columns and 1 row. If I go down, it increases my row. Okay, so go down to increase your row and go left to right to increase your columns. So I'm going to choose 5 columns and 5 rows. And that's it. Okay, I'm going to do it one more time. So hover my mouse around and choosing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got my 5 columns and now 5 rows. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there we go. Okay. Now, if you want to use the insert column, you're more than welcome to. All you do is simply choose 5 columns and how many rows? 5. So just toggle over there. And the exact same thing. If you want to add in a little bit of color, you can do that. I do like adding in color in my tables just because why not? Okay. Now also we have quite a few options here. I'm just going to choose a blue column there. Okay, so if you don't want to choose that, that's fine. That is all up to you. Okay. There we go, back to that. So that's how we add in a table. Now, why I say a table, you are not fixed on choosing a table for answering your WH questions. However, it's just nice to see them across. And you can remember, you don't want to spend too long on your pre-writing, okay? It should be quick, it should be easy, and it should be a way that you can implement your writing techniques without taking too much fuss from you. Okay, let's say if you want, let's just add a background color to here. Background to your page color. Okay, let's give that a little bit of color then. Okay, so now I have my table and I've got a nice old background color on it. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, now you can obviously change your layout if you want. If you want to change your orientation, it's now in portrait. If you want to move it to landscape, you can do that. For my initial purposes, I'll just use in portrait just because I want to keep this quick and easy and not taking up too much of time. Okay, so let's ask our questions. The first one will be a what, a why, a when, a who, and a where. Okay, so we can add in another block with a how if you want, but I'm going to stop over there. So what, why, when, who, where, okay? They can be mixed up. They can be changed according to order. This isn't the only order to write them in. Okay, so that's how we can start our table. So let's go back to our PowerPoint. And I'm going to open that up. Okay, so we are at this point where we created our table and we have done this. As you can see, mine has changed slightly from my original practice, but it doesn't really matter because as long as you answer all these questions. So now I have a topic sentence that we're going to be looking at fleshing out today. And my topic sentence is discuss AI usage in university. What are the benefits and the negative aspects of using AI? And there's an added bit there, add in a personal perspective. And it's 1,000 words. Okay, so we're going to take this and break it down into who, what, when, why, where. And be like, how do I do that? I've never done this before. Or maybe you're like, oh, I've done this quite a few times. I know how to go about it. Great. So let's do it together. So, what's our main topic here? Discussing AI usage in university. Now, does it limit the use to who is using AI? Okay. Is it just students? Is it the whole university? What do you think? So if we're looking at the who is using AI? All we have, I'm going to highlight this, is AI usage in universities. It doesn't say who is using it. So we have a wide berth of discussing AI in the totality of the university. Okay, it's not just limited to students, it's not limited to lecturers, it's limited to your personal imagination there. So we'll first need to discuss who is using AI. Then it goes on to what. So the what question is already sort of given to us. It says, what are the benefits and the negative aspects of AI? So under our what column, we're going to be looking at benefits and negatives, or positives and negatives of using AI. So we're going to look at all of that under what? When. So when are we using AI? When is it being used? And so we'll look at when it's being used. Then it's the why. Why is AI being used in university? Okay. And then where exactly is it being used? It's just in the classrooms? Is it a part of like internal staff using it? So those are all areas we can examine. Okay. Now don't forget the last bit, which is add in a personal perspective. So then if you take that in and you come back to your who question, it's going to be you. What's my personal perspective on AI? What do I think are the benefits and negatives of using AI? When do I use AI? Why do I use AI? And where do I use AI? So that's how we take our topic sentence and we break it down into more questions. Okay. Now I want you to remember it's pre-writing. We are not doing any editing at this point. We are simply going to examine and look at all the possible questions, points that we are going to look at. Okay. And that's going to take us on to our next slide, where we are going to be looking at this in slightly more depth. And then we will open up our Word doc again and have a look at how we can possibly answer this. So we know pre-writing tools are a great strategy, and also using your WH questions help us generate ideas, structure our thoughts, and clarify our purpose of writing. Okay, so I looked at who, what, where, when, and why. I did not look at how, okay? But that you can have a nosy at yourself. Those questions help guide us when we are brainstorming, and they help to organize your writing before drafting. So, how do we use these WH questions? I know I just spoke about them briefly. Let's look at them a little bit more in context. Okay, so who? Identify the people involved in your topic. Example, who's affected by this issue? Who is the audience for my writing? So like I said, discuss AI usage in university. That is a very, very broad statement. Okay, so it's going to encompass a wide range of people using AI and not just students by themselves. So who's affected by this issue and who's the audience of my writing? This will be your lecturer who'll be reading your writing. Now the what. The what is going to define your main idea or subject of your writing. What are you writing about? What's the view you're taking? What's the view you want to show? What is your topic about? It's AI usage in university. And what are the key points I need to include? Okay. So let's look at question where. Where? So you're going to determine the location or the context for the topic. Where does this issue take place? So we know this already. It's in university. Where can I find more information? So that's a nice little bit because it doesn't only link to the where that you know, but it's also emphasizing the where of if I don't know the answer for this, where can I find more information? Okay, that can be your learning resource center, that can be the internet, friends, lecturer, that is up to you. Now, when? Okay, when you're going to look at your time frame related to your topic. When did this happen? When is this topic most relevant? Okay. Now we are talking about AI university. Obviously, AI has increased dramatically in the last few years. So it'll be currently, you can add in a time frame of when AI increased. You can look at what events led to AI increasing, and you can examine a whole lot of data related to just about when. So let's look at example questions. When did this event happen? When is this topic most relevant? I would say currently at the way things are going. However, we are just at the cusp of AI. Now, why? We're going to explore the reasons or the logic behind our topic. Why is this topic being given to us? What's the information they want us to find out about it? And why is it important? Why should the audience care? The audience is the lecturers, fellow students. Why should we be aware of this topic? So these are only some of the reasons we can look at, okay? We can examine it in great detail. However, it's just a good starting point. Okay, so let's look at this a little bit more. We're writing about the impact of technology in education. Your WH question, pre-writing, who? Students, teachers, or lecturers, policymakers, because policymakers are also very important in education. What's the role of technology or AI in education? Where? Schools, universities, online learning. When? Past, present, and future impacts. Okay, so we could talk about why we think it's important. It improves learning. So this is a positive, but raises concern about screen time. Okay, so that's a good balance. Yes, it is good, but then I also have noticed this concern. Okay, and how is it working? Through online learning, interactive tools, and AI. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again, and we are going to go back into Word. Okay, so just that. Oh, just 1 second. Okay, so here we have discuss AI usage university. What are the benefits and negative aspects of using AI? And use a personal perspective. Right. So what? Let's see. We're going to write down absolutely everything that comes to mind for using AI. What? What is it? What is AI? We talk about it a lot, but do we know what it is? Why is it being used. Can you see I'm not fussing too much about is it good a sentence? I'm literally just going to write down everything that comes to my mind about it and later I will edit it. When is it being used? Who is using it? Where is it being used? Okay, so let's flesh this out a bit. Who is using it? So I'm going to go with students, lecturers, staff. Where's it being used? It's being used at university. It's being used in classes. You can even add in your learning resource center or library. And you can also say staff rooms. Okay. So when is it being used? It is being used for education. It's being used for general administration tasks. Why is it being used? Now this is a nice little bit. Why is it being used to help make it easier to write? Some people say you can generate ideas. So I generally try to keep one idea to a line. If you want to increase new lines, then you go to right click, insert rows below. Again, insert rows below or above. Okay, generate ideas, help with spelling. There are many different types of AI. They can help you with your spelling, with your grammar. So it's being used currently. It was also used in the past. And then you could show the change from that. Okay, what is AI? What is it being used for? What can we change due to AI? And then we can go into positives. Makes studying easier. And we can delve into negatives. It is not, it cannot replace the human understanding. Okay, so there, few minutes just writing down all my ideas. Now, obviously, you can spend a bit longer on that and get your own ideas. Okay, so that's a very, very rough draft. You can go back in and change. So here I have another type of draft. I'm just going to make that a blue background. Okay, super. So I got more questions here. Okay. When I did this, I had points, I had some questions, it was a mixture. But here I'm just focusing on questions because these questions will give me answers or generate more questions. So my first question needs to be what are the negative aspects of AI in universities. Okay. My next question is, what are the positive aspects in university? And this should be my first question, because what is AI in education? Okay, so AI exists in different sectors. However, what's the difference in education? Let's look at our who questions. Who gains the most from AI in education? Is it students? Is it lecturers? Is it the people who are in the office using AI? Who benefits and who is disadvantaged by AI? So if you haven't thought about who's being disadvantaged by AI, now is a nice time to think about that, okay? Because it's often lauded as wonderful, but with everything, there are a pro and a con of a situation. Let's look at the next question. When? When is AI most beneficial to a student's academic journey? So now you'll think about, when do you use AI? When is it beneficial for you? And the next when question is, when should AI be introduced into the learning process? So can you see these questions? I'm not going to answer them immediately. However, at some point they will, but with pre-writing, it's getting me to think about the whole picture. Okay, so by asking these questions, at some point, I will get the answers. Also, like I've mentioned, not all questions from here will be used. Okay, so why is AI beneficial in university settings? And why are ethical considerations necessary for AI in universities? Why do we need to worry about the ethics part of AI? Okay. So, where does AI have the most impact? Where do students and teachers interact with AI the most? And where does AI present the biggest challenges in academia? Okay, so now I've had a look at my questions, and I'm going to decide which questions are absolutely important and need to stay in my questions. Okay, so I'm going to start highlighting them. So the first one I'm going to highlight is, what is AI in education? Okay, so that's my first what question. I'm going to go with my second what question because it's answering my question. So let's go back to the topic. Discuss AI usage in university. So that highlights what I've just touched on. What is AI in education? So I can see it's linking to my topic. Okay, so the next part is, what are the benefits and negatives? So I'm definitely going to include that when I am starting to write my essay. Okay, now let's go to the who question. Who gains the most from AI and who benefits and who's disadvantaged? So I think I'll highlight who gains the most. Okay, and I think that's who question is very similar to my what question, so I'm not going to highlight it. Okay, so let's look at our when. Now, this is purely up to you. You highlight what you think is necessary. I'm going with, when is AI the most beneficial, because that will tell me about the usage. And I would like to look at the why are ethical considerations necessary, just because I think it's quite an interesting impact. Now, with the where, I'm going to go with, where does AI have the most impact? So just of these few questions, I'm going to now gain an understanding. I can see my introduction will start with, what is AI? I can see I'll delve into positive and negatives. I can know that who's going to be gaining the most, when is it most beneficial, when does it have the most impact? And then I would like to also focus on ethical, so I can see how it is going to shape out. And you know what? Once I start writing and it doesn't shape out the way I thought it would, I can come back to this. I can have a look and be like, okay, maybe the ethical considerations is not as important as I thought it would be. And I'm going to change that to why is AI beneficial? Okay. And I've changed that to that. So now I'm now focusing more on a positive leaning because here I have the both positive and negative, but here it's the why is solely focusing on a beneficial. So I'm a bit skewed towards focusing on the beneficial aspect of it. So what I would recommend is that you save this. So go to File, go to Save, and I'm going to save it as WH questions, AI, education, and I'm going to write pre-writing. Okay, so maybe yours will be labeled a bit differently and press save somewhere. Save. So as you can see at the top, it's WHI, WHAI, and it's saved there. So I would recommend saving it, come back to it, edit it as needed, and then go about your day. But it's a quick way, get your writing out, and then get started on your essay. Okay, so let's finish this up. Got one more slide to do, and then I am finished. Okay, so here's here's an example of what it could look like. Obviously, it will change based on you. And I hope this session was helpful for you. Please feel free to reach out to us, give us a call, or drop us an email, and we will do our best to assist you. Have a wonderful day, and thank you.